You got spare game codes or any digital goods? There is a place you can sell them in less than 1 minute. Watch. Go to g2a.com. Click Start Selling. Fast login. Go to My Account and click on Selling tab. Sell new item. Enter name, code, set a price. And done. G2A.com Digital Marketplace. Global selling simplified.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We have our final match of the day. It's been a grueling day so far. 4 best of 5 so far, and we're down to our 5th one between a legendary rivalry between Tempo Storm and Archon. That's right, we'll have Amaz versus Gaara. What do you think about this match, Gaara?
So looking at this, it's Warlock, Hunter, and Mage for Gaara against Druid, Hunter, and Warlock now. I think Amaz is playing quite aggressively. But I think against the Warlock that Gaara is playing, aggression will be quite strong. But overall, the Mage that Gaara is playing is a wreck aggression, and we have the Hunter that's got a Death Lord, but in general not the strongest against stuff like Sue. So I have to give Amaz probably a slight edge because I think he's probably likely to 3-0 this Warlock.
Oh yeah, I mean it is possible. But I guess I have to give the edge to Gaara in some senses because I think that Hunter is actually really good at anti-aggro deck. I've been playing it a lot on ladder lately, and it's I'm just having a really high win rate, especially against aggro.
I feel if Gaara gets a 1-0 with the Warlock deck and gets that out of the way, he's going to be heavily favored to take the whole series. But I think it will be an uphill battle against Amaz. So I'm going to call it 3-2 to Amaz with Amaz killing the Warlock over and over. But it should be interesting to see now. We have Life Coach already advancing 6-0 domination here in this group. Gaara beating board control like Amaz, but they both lost to Life Coach. So for the final match in the final slot here in the from Group C. Now tomorrow we have Group D. It's going to be Firebat versus Thijs and Forsen versus Renman. And Renman is the Russian that qualified from the Open qualifier. And we've had one Open qualified player go through so far, that's Lostov. Now, board control sadly did get 4th place, so it's been a bit of a rough day for him. Be interested to see who goes through though. The round of 8 looks to be quite stacked.
Oh yeah, very stacked. We have Kalento, we have Strife Crow, we even have Life Coach coming from this group, and between players like Firebat that might advance, and like even Gaara or Amaz, that's definitely like one of the most stacked round of 8s that I've seen in a Hearthstone tournament within the last like 2 or 3 months even.
I think to note also that Lostov looked so solid. He played excellent Hearthstone so far. Now Hunter for both players, Warlock for both players, then the Mage. I think be interested to see what Gaara starts with. I think if I was him, I'd probably start with the Mage. That looks to be the strongest against all 3 classes. That Flamemaker can just, plow through aggro and low health minions there.
Yeah. You mentioned that you thought Amaz would be able to 3-0 the Warlock, but I feel like Gaara's Warlock might be able to do okay against Amaz's lineup because it does have those Molten Giants, which are good against the like all the aggression that Amaz can potentially put down.
Wonder if he knows. I mean, it was a big thing in the Life Coach matchup so far that Amaz Gaara was indeed playing Moltens in that. So I mean, the Sue is probably the only one who's going to struggle with bursting him down from maybe, let's say, 15, but it's definitely possible.
Oh yeah, definitely. It'd be interesting to see if Amaz actually watched the matches actually, right? Because it's very possible, because he's so busy. He's busy with the Archon League. He's busy with all the announcements that he might not have time to watch Gaara's games. Might not have time to like see that there were indeed Molten Giants in that deck. So it might be something that Amaz actually doesn't play around, and I think we'll be able to easily tell if he has watched the matches or not.
Overall, though, an exciting series, and we should be going to game number 1 now any moment. But I think I can to mention the Druid of Amaz. The Druid should be in a lot of trouble. Every single player except Gaara has been bringing Druid, and that Hunter with double Hunter's mark should, yeah, dominate against Druid. So I'm seeing that almost as a free win. So for Gaara, it will be the Warlock, which needs to get the win, and then for Amaz, it will be the Druid that will be the tricky one, I think.
Yeah, that being said, though, I feel like the Death Lords in the Hunter of Gaara, it feels like those are weak against Druid, because Druid has a lot of minions that have 4 attack. If you can combo something like a Pilot Charger attack plus a swipe, that can just kill off the Death Lord immediately. Then you get a huge minion out of your Druid deck, and that can just snowball for right there.
You can indeed. I think to note will be if Gaara gets the coin with the mates, as I think the Flamemaker, maybe except for the old Miracle Rogue, is the deck that gains most from having that coin. Now we're already in game number 1 here. Gaara starting with the mage like we were talking about, gets a Mukla from the Airtable portal, and should be able to trade in as well. He's facing Su though, and Mukla is not the best card against Su. It would have been excellent against Druid or something like that, but
it's typically not the best against Zu, but in this scenario, like, because you do have board control, it doesn't seem too bad. Like, he'll...
True, yeah.
Yeah, Amaz will be able to get, like, repetitive damage in every single turn.
I think the note though is it looks like probably did have the coin? Yeah.
Yeah, he had the coin, I think. And not only that, but he gets protected behind mirror images. It seems like the perfect start for Gaara.
The mirror image is actually so crucial. I think without having seen that card, it was looking a lot bigger for Gaara. But now you have the Void Terror coming down. The Frostbolt might be a bit of an upset. I think in this case you just have to start going face. When you have so much burst, you can look at the Arcane Intellect. I mean, you have what, 9 from hand, 7. You only need 8 more damage, so 1 more round, and you're looking at lethal almost. You only see one Voidwalker from Amaz, so yeah, I think you just have to go for it with this sort of hand. I mean, usually you could play the control game as the mates, but in this specific scenario, you have to kind of play to your hand and go aggressive, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with you. We saw the mistake of war control in the last game, not going for face enough. And even though there looks like a seemingly easy trade here with the 5/5 into the 3/5, I have to agree with you. Just leveraging like the minions that you have on board to get repetitive damage in seems to be key. I also don't mind this play though. I still hope he goes for face yet, and that just basically gives him at least 1 more turn in order for him to. In order for the images to get some effect.
There's always a debate, I guess. I think a key thing to look at is the hybrid hunter deck. And when you play that deck, you have to play completely differently depending on what you draw. So you can play the same deck. Yeah, let's say for example you have Wolf Riders and Arcane Golems, you just need to go non-stop phase. Whereas if you have, let's say, you know, Sweaters into Loatheb into possibly Savannah, you can play the control game. So this seems to be kind of the same scenario, as we do know that he's running a Flame Strike, for example, which might come in handy against Zu.
Yeah, and it'll be really good against Zu, but it actually, like, when this particular game, it might not be what he wants to draw here. Because he just wants to get those minions, he wants to get that damage in, he doesn't care as much about controlling the board.
I think the Mirror Empty is the key in this matchup. He's going to go far with clearing, but yeah, the Mirror is just such value. Wonder how he's gonna end up going for this. Maybe taunt both the Hunter Creepers. Still, he needs a lot of value. I kind of like this. You now can actually clear the mechanical area and still have 2 health left. You can't really get value out of that second Hunter Creeper though, but
yeah,
gets the spare part.
It's also a really awkward trade for your opponent because your opponent's already used 1 Frostbolt. So if you trade your 5/7 into oh, he actually goes for that. Okay, that makes even more sense because if he does that, I have to say he probably should have somehow cleared this Mad Scientist because now there's an easy trade here.
I think attacking into the Yeti would be better because then now he can attack with the Mad Scientist without pinging. But if he attacks into the Yeti, he would require a ping.
Well, that's a funny hand that we see.
It really is. This is the best card he could possibly have drawn.
And now that definitely like sends lightning bolts through Amaz's head. He's like, oh my god, I'm almost dead. Does he have a fireball? Does he have a frostbolt? He can't even play around those because he basically needs a Mal'Ganis somehow. That's his only, literally his only option. He can stall it out for one more turn with Lotheb, but he doesn't have enough time to get a Mal'Ganis.
So we're gonna have to see Lotheb into. Well, okay, Lotheb into tap Void Collar. Doesn't even need. He needs Void Collar and Power Warming and Mal'Ganis for that. It's just too much. He's gonna go for the Lotheb though, so that's something. But it's just too little, too late, and well played by Gaara, really. At this point though, it doesn't matter at all because there's no possibility of a heal anyhow.
That's pretty much it.
We see the Mal'Ganis. Oh boy, if we only had the Void Collar now. Technically, it would still be in trouble because he could Fireball and ping, and then just ping Gaara, ping Amaz a few times, and then probably get the win there.
Yeah, 4-turn clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fortunately that's not it. I'm struggling to see if there's like literally anything that Amaz could do, and to be honest, I think he knows he's dead.
I think so, yeah. Mm-hmm. But then it just comes down to, does he want to show him cards that he doesn't need to? Probably doesn't matter in this case. He figures that this is going to be standard Sue with, I guess, the mid-range cards. So Gaara taking game one game closer to the round of 8. Now, even though he has one ahead, it's still a minor issue. As we were talking about it before, the Warlock is going to be the key deck for Gaara, and the Druid is going to be the key deck for Amaz. So even though one of them goes 2-0 up even, you know, it won't matter as much. It'll be better, if I was Gaara now, I'd rather be 0-1 ahead and having one with the Warlock than being 2-0 ahead and having one with the Hunter and Mage. And the same for Amaz. I'd rather be 1-0 up having one with the Druid than 2-0 up having one with the Hunter and Warlock.
I don't know, man. I just want the wins. I just want to be ahead. That's my mindset.
Oh yeah, this is so painful when you actually are up 2-0 and end up losing 3-2. You feel so, yeah, especially like the mental game of losing again and again. In that case, it can be a lot. So we see Hunter looks to be. Yeah, this looks to be Hunter, right? Yeah, Hunter against Warlock. Not
very
the worst
strong
scenario.
opening hand. Strong opening hand from Amaz, but also pretty strong opening hand from Gaara with the at least the Mortal Quell into an Earthring Farseer.
Yeah, this is ideal. I mean, he has a Mortal Coil on turn 1. Just having the coin for Gaara is a major deal. Not to have it from himself, but to deny it from Amaz. And Vorken, again, this is just 1 health minion after 1 health minion. It's better than having to drop the abusive, I guess, but I mean, I'm seeing, you know, Gaara just tapping. Possibly gonna go for the Owl. Yeah.
You know,
I don't know.
To be honest, this deck is actually better than Handlock against Face Hunter, because it not only does it have the Molten Giants, it doesn't have the Mountain Giants. And it also has one more heal in the form of Earthwind Farseer, plus the 2 antique heal bots. So I think this actually might not be too bad for Gaara at all.
I think it depends on a few key things, and I think the most important thing is how many taunts does Gaara run. You know, I guess Sun Fury, Defender of Argus types. So you usually have 3 in the handlock. We've seen at least 1 Defender of Argus.
Yeah, a card is drawn and just directly pointed at the face. We know how Amaz thinks there. He only cares about the face.
The heal bot is at least available, but this literally comes down to what does Amaz draw in the next few turns. Does he draw a kill command? Will Gaara be able to find the taunt he needs?
Find out next time on Hearthstone Adventures.
So we have Healbot as the only realistic option, and that's gonna be a one-off. So almost any minion, any card. No, it's not one of. What am I saying? He can trade into the Arcane. So
Yeah, so there was actually, he needed 3 damage, so one of these juggles have to hit face.
and he figures he's going to do as much damage as possible before.
Oh, wow. Okay, so he's actually
No.
missing 1 from the hero power as well, so...
What do you think about just going for Unleash and Hero Power in that case? Put him down to 1 health.
Yeah, it's possible, but what's that knife juggler gonna do for you later on, though? That's the real question.
I think it doesn't really matter in that case. You know, if he has a second heal bot, you're probably gonna lose anyway. And if he doesn't have a second heal bot, he's just dead. But now the explosive does come down. Maybe Gaara figured this might be a. Amaz figures this Gaara figures this might be a fusion trap, but considering what he's seen so far, it's unlikely. I mean, you see the War Consider that basically guarantees that it's gonna be a. Guaranteed that it's gonna be a phase hunter only with explosive traps, maybe one snake trap.
And also, like, your opponent is not going to play a freezing trap into an Earthring Farseer. That's just not something that he does. So even if Amaz like keeps drawing dead, Gaara's going to be dead very soon.
I like the tap here actually. I mean, he figures any damage will kill him anyway, so 3 or 5 it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, he basically, he needs to tap for, he needs to dig deeper in order to get his Alexstrasza, in order to get his second heal bot. Even a Molten Giant might be somewhat helpful here. Soulfire is not it. So he has to go for the off chance that it's not explosive trap, but unfortunately that's going to be it. Amaz takes 1 more game.
Game number 2, yeah, going to Amaz. But again, it's the hunter, not the druid, and so it's really even now. But again, not the most important thing in this match. So druid and warlock against hunter and warlock. I'm curious to see what Gaara queues up next. I think for Amaz, should probably be the druid coming out. I mean, I think druid is more bearable against the hunter. And you know this is full on face hunter. Wait, well no, this is actually no. With Gaara was playing, yeah, it was Amaz that was playing full on face hunter, and Gaara is playing the, I guess, more mid-rangey deck. And the mid-range deck should be weaker against Sue, as you don't have the same speed really to get ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I think this matchup is actually really favored to Amaz. I think, like you mentioned before, mid-range Demon Zoo is typically thought to be one of the best counters towards Malygos Warlock, because a lot of the threats like that you put out there are just have so high value that typically like the Blackwing Corruptors and the Implosions don't handle it. That being said, Gaara's not running Blackwing Corruptors or Implosions. He's running like the Molten Giant. The Molten Giant tech, Molten Giants, Alexstrasza, Sun Fairy Protectors. So that actually changes the matchup like completely around. And I think it really depends on whether Amaz he'll be able to play around those cards. Seem to have lost Caldi there.
No, so it's kind of a sad scenario for Gaara. I mean, he doesn't have a 4-drop ready to go. Marilock struggles the most with Sue, it seems overall, and kind of a sad scenario here in game number 3 for Gaara.
Yeah, just no action on him. He just needed, like, the one problem that I find when playing standard Malygos Warlock is that you pretty much only have your 2 Imp Gang bosses on 3 unless you include an Earthring Farseer, which a lot of people don't. And you pretty much only have your Twilight Drakes on 4. So it's actually very easy to miss those drops and get, like, very unoptimal turns.
Yeah, I mean, this hand is just really slow from Gaara. There's no Twilight Drakes, there's no big AoE really, whereas Amaz has kind of everything he could ever want. Amaz being the bottom player with the demon, with the void colors there. Gaara being the top player with the implosion and the, I guess the belcher. But this should be fairly easy void color. I mean, the value you get out of that thing is going to be insane. Looking at implosion, okay. If you get 4, it's better. I'll give you that. But my idea for going for the void colors, you're only going to give him more imps, and this board I don't feel it's as strong. You kind of want to get one void color on because it's going to take a little bit of time to actually get the value for it. Because you need to play, then Gaara can ignore it, and then eventually you have to kill it. So it takes a few turns. But from Gaara's point of view, I think Belch is probably the best call, but it's still not a nice position to be in.
Well, as the Malygos Warlock, you're the player with the AoE, so you might even consider just not trading into the imps and waiting to draw perhaps an AoE in the next turn with Shadow Flame or Hellfire, and you have actually 2 chances to draw into those. Also, you have to consider that these imp gang bosses, they won't be able to spawn any more minions when they go up to 7, or when your opponent's side of the board is up to 7. So you might be able to do something with that as well. But yeah, but like you said, like the very obvious play is just to throw down the Celestial Strike. I mean, it's turn 5. It's the only 5 attack minion, or rather 5 mana minion in your hand.
Another 4. What is this with this crazy implosion paying off here big time? Like my thinking is, okay, it's a decent tempo play and it's a decent card, but it's going to give my opponent a lot of extra imps. Think about if he hadn't hit for 4, then he can attack twice, get 2 extra imps. Just a lot of stuff going on. But now, I guess Arcus is decent, but again, he wants to get that void core out as soon as possible.
Yeah. If Amaz was watching the previous games, I think he would definitely have to be playing around number 1 AoE and number 2 Molten Giants. So I definitely like the trades here, just controlling the board as much as possible. On the other hand, though, if Amaz plays too slowly, it'll give Gaara enough time to draw into like the AoE that we're talking about, or even the big threats like the Twilight Drake.
Yeah, the longer this game goes on, the better it's going to be for Gaara. As soon as he gets the Shadow Flame, he'll be able to stabilize. Now, Twilight Drake is decent. I wonder if he's going to think about Dark Bomb in combination with that. Probably not, I guess. I mean, this board is relatively low in damage, so he can spare some time to dig for taunts and Shadow Flame. Possibly even Hellfire.
Yeah, not too many great options here. You can tap to try to get closer to those AoEs that we were talking about, but you can also play the Ooze, which isn't going to get any value off the rest of the game. That if you play the Ooze, you're basically saying, okay, I have to fight for board head on, straight on. Usually that isn't like something that you can typically do against Zoo, but just judging by how slow this game has been, it's actually like a decent choice.
Yeah, I mean, he wants to fight for the board, and this is definitely the way to do that. He figures, you know, how am I going to get better value out of this Ooze and against the board like this, and it is quite ideal. Probably going to trade maybe even into the 2-2 imp gang boss. Maybe he does even to go into the 1-1. Yeah, he wants to get an extra imp out of that as he feels unlikely that he has. I'll actually go for this. I mean, the health on the Void Walker is free, I guess, so that comes into play. He silences the Void. Okay, not bad.
It's actually surprising that it's taken this long for Gaara to get the Iron Beak Owl out of his hand. Typically, you have like so many creatures that you can silence. Haunted Creeper is a good choice. Nubian Egg is a good choice. Even like Knife Jugglers, we've seen those being silenced against you before as well.
It seems to be always on turn 2 as an answer in that case, but the best one definitely is the Void Caller. He drops the second one, 2 Doomguards in hand, so that silence is actually gonna be great. We see a Big Game Hunter decent against that Dr. Boom. Now, I feel like he may want to just start going aggressive again.
Okay, so Gaara was really tempted to do that because I think what he was thinking was that in most scenarios he either wouldn't have a demon or he wouldn't be able to BGH the Mal'Ganis that came out. Unfortunately, this was completely the worst option for Gaara. Something else is that Gaara's seen that Amaz has had those Void Callers in his hand for a very long time, and Amaz has been reluctant to play them So he might be thinking maybe he just hasn't drawn into a demon yet, and he's just bluffing me out.
The general idea is when you see a wall color is silence or ignore, and attack it only if you have to. And it felt like it was necessary risk there for Gaara to take. I mean, the pressure on the board is going to be, you know, it's going to double here in one turn. But yeah, the bounce is going to just be dominated for free here.
Well, at least with the play that Gaara did, he denies Amaz the chance to attack with the Void Caller himself to get out the Doom Guard, which will have charge. So it's essentially like this 5/7 doesn't have charge at the moment.
I think so. Now, looking at the options here, is there anything better to do than go with Dr. Boom here? I mean, we do know that there's going to be 2 BGHs generally in Mali Lock. The Mars must figure that out, but still, you want to empty your hand fast for that value. And I like his trading here. The idea is to play around Hellfire, and he's doing that beautifully here.
Yeah, and Amaz is he's played this game pretty well, I have to say. Just like playing it slow, but playing it in a way that he on this turn turns 8. He's put enough pressure on the board that Gaara is extremely scared, and he's run out of a lot of answers that he needs to deal with this type of board.
That's true. Now, looking at double Dark Bomb, you can clear the Doom Guard.
He can actually clear off most of this board. It's pretty scary.
But then it's the second Doom Guard that's going to be the big threat in what Amaz. If he draws a mediocre draw, I could see him just running away with this game. RF Tawasa might actually come in handy now. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. It's actually pretty amazing that like no Molten Giants have been played, and because Amaz is seeing, okay, you have 1 health, but you didn't play a Molten Giant, and you also have 1 mana, that means I actually just don't have to play Molten Giants for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's true. Now, like this is decent. I think you definitely trade in though. I mean, that's actually a good question. Like, the idea of the trade in would be so he couldn't go for something else instead of playing something else and then run the BTH into the Nerubian. But we know there's 2 Moltens in Gaara's deck, so this guy might turn around quickly here.
Yeah, I think he just has to Alexstrasza and hope for the best here.
He does, yeah.
And he's still not dead if he does that. Doomguard isn't enough. He would need to draw like into Abusive or Power Overwhelming.
Maybe he can wait 1 more turn, go like tap into him Gang Boss.
No, I think that's way too scary. If he if he does the play you're suggesting, he would be at 8 health, and that's just there's way too much damage on the board. Amaz top deck's Power Overwhelming, so I guess that's it.
Yeah, it's true here. Now, it's obviously, you know, easy when you know what cards in the opponent's deck, but Amaz is gonna be winning this one here, going ahead 2-1 in this series. Only the Druid left, the one we'll be mentioning again and again. Easy wins with the Hunter and the Warlock here.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it's Gaara's deck that's really struggling against Amaz's lineup, but and I also feel that like those 2 decks were probably some of Amaz's worst decks against the Malygos Warlock. I feel like the Druid is actually gonna be like probably one of the better ones in his lineup against Warlock.
Yeah, it looks like he's gonna get almost a free win with Hunter. Not having the coin is really bad though, and Amaz also picking up the Innovate, so could be looking good for him.
Okay, here's a real question here. The matchup is going to be Hunter versus Druid, and the question I have for you, Caldi, is: do you keep tracking on turn 1, given that first of all you don't have the coin, and second of all there are no other 1-drops in your deck? This deck runs no 1-drops except tracking.
I think there's no reason not to keep tracking. Yeah, I mean, there's some mid hunters that run Leper Gnomes and Abusives and just cut out the Wolf Riders and the Arcane Golems for the 4 and 5 drops, but I think there's no reason not to go for the tracking. And you want to track into, you know, Animal Companions, Paladin Sweaters, Savannah Highmanes even. If you had the coin, you could track into the Hunter's Mark, but if you don't have the coin, you can't really afford to go for that as you run out of steam. But About the best one-top you could possibly have. A mad scientist, about the best. It's excellent to keep a Savannah Hyman, even the starting hand. So we see Savannah Hyman and mad scientist. I even want to go as far as to say keep the Savannah Hyman. What would you keep here in this position?
I think typically I would keep the Mad Scientist, but just judging from Gaara's current hand, I'd go with the High Man as well. There's such power cards, plus you already have a Mad Scientist and another secret in your hand, so you're probably not going to get that much value of a Mad Scientist if he keeps it, but Gaara's looking to curve out more. He's going for the pressure. He's trying to get like all the traps out of his deck, and he's going to get punished if he draws into one of his other traps.
A thing to mention is we don't know how many traps Gaara is running, so if he's running, 3 or 4 traps, this might be a decent call. My thinking is on turn 3 it might be as decent to go for a snake trap as it is to go for a mad scientist, mostly to ensure that the next trap out of mad scientist will be a freezing trap. Now,
Yeah,
Keeper is so good, even without Wild Growth or out Innovate, it's just so good in every position here.
Exactly. Gaara, he definitely runs 3 secrets. He runs 2 snake traps and 1 freezing trap. But a key here is that because he's discarded the Savannah High Main, like that's actually the top end of his deck. So pretty much the top end is now his 1 Savannah High Main. So he has to use that card to carry him through the rest of the game. And if he ever like goes into a situation where he's top decking and the boards are like pretty clean from both sides, he's going to be at a complete disadvantage. And not only that, but he's not going to have any hope for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I like his play here. So we see that he does have a snake trap activated, as the snake trap wasn't green in that case, but the wrath on the juggler is amazing, and he definitely knows what trap it is. Going for the shade again, quite mediocre. It's gonna need that swipe realistically before he attacks, but thankfully for Amaz, the board of Gaara is quite low damage. Things changing up fast here with that board. Now, if he goes for the Haunted Creeper, he's just gonna die to a swipe. He doesn't go for it. It's gonna be a bit rough. We see no swipe from Amaz, but so much mana available for next turn.
Exactly. Like Amaz, like it feels like Amaz lives or dies by whether he top deck swipe in the following turns. Like this hover is typically this hover wouldn't be good, but because there's a snake trap on the field, the hover is actually very threatening. Because even if you remove the hover, which Maz can't really without Savage Roar, then there will be a lot of snakes that'll come onto the field. In fact, Maz actually has to Savage Roar here in order to get rid of hover.
Even the second Savage Roar. Oof, he can't attack into it though, he has to figure that there's going to be a snake trap. So, about probably the worst card he could draw as Amaz.
Yeah. Also, if Amaz, he knows what's going on with this deck, he should possibly innervate out the BGH because there's no big BGH targets in the deck. Except for Leoct, Savannah High Main.
That's true, yeah. Or I guess maybe Paladin Sweater, Diable Alpha or something.
Yeah.
If possible. Now, Savannah High Main, it has to come down. It's just going to be the case of how does he trade. I think you can't have to go aggressive, yeah.
What are you talking about trading? Just go face.
It's like one into the 5/5 or all to face. I mean, if he has the snake trap, and if he, let's say that he would attack the shade into Haunted Creeper, he essentially gets the snake trap for free there. But still, there's the swipe to be drawn, and with Savannah High Main, there's no counter to Savannah High Main from the Druid. It's only just a painful scenario of having to run a mid-sized minion and a silence, or a mid-sized minion, and then trade twice, or throw away a wrath or something. It costs about 10 mana usually to get rid of it effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
But
there's the swipe.
The value, yeah.
It's gonna be so key. But you know what? The problem is, like, there's still so many minions. Like, the swipe doesn't do as much as it should. Like, you can get rid of the 1/1s, and I guess you can either get rid of Huffer, but there's still gonna be like the spiders that come out of the Haunted Creepers, and there's still gonna be the 2 hyenas that come out of the Savannah High Main.
I think the key is going to be the Feasting tab, because you can't both bust up the Hunter Creeper and kill the high main in this case.
Yeah, and you have to feel like you have to go for the high main, right?
I actually think you need to go for the Hunter Creeper.
But you know the Amaz rule. In fact, Amaz knows the Amaz rule. The Amaz rule is if high main goes for face once, then you die. Like you just.
The thing is though, what's gonna be scarier? A heifer plus two minions, or a one Savannah, and you still keep your 5/5 alive. That's my thinking. That well, let's see what Amaz goes for. Does he swipe first? Okay, and he goes face. Oh, okay, that's actually not bad. I don't mind that at all. Yeah, I like this better for sure. Well played, Tomas. For freaking that up, man. Yeah.
So
and now we can possibly combo him down next turn if he draws it, but it's. And
Death Lord might put a stop to that. So there's not actually any charge minions that can come out of the Death Lord. So even if he gets Drew the Claw out, that won't be able to do any charging damage.
That's true. I guess possibly Rag would be the best. But in general, what's possible here? Gonna have to get a good card from the Death Lord.
If
maybe Belcher could be.
If only Amaz had an Innervate. Yeah, you have to feel like Amaz. It's either taunt or bust at this point, and even if there's a taunt, it still probably is game over.
That's true. Let's see, what does he get from that? Ever so tricky Death Lord. Let's see. Powdered Shredder.
See, there's not even a way to kill your Powdered Shredder in case something happens there.
You're not thinking about double Savage Roar, Big Game Hunter into a stable Ghoul?
Very possible. How could I forget? But you know what? Now, there's an IRB Gal, so the game's over.
A 2-2, and what decks are we talking about would be the tricky ones for Amaz and Gaara? Gaara's Warlock and Amaz's Druid. I'm actually going to see those two decks face off in game number 5.
Yeah.
For the last slot in the round of 8.
Yeah, you predicted this exact situation, Kaldi, that these would be the two weak decks from both players, and it just happens to play out the exact same way, so props to you, Kaldi. What a brilliant analysis.
Thank you. Let's see, so the Maligos against Druid, generally it's decent for the Maligos, but the problem is that there's no Black and Corruptors, and those are the key cards for the Maligos. I mean, what I'm saying is that Gaara isn't running those cards now. Walgeld is an auto keep, and I think the Keeper of the Grove is probably going to be kept as well, yeah. Nothing kept for the Gaara though.
For the Gaara. Gaara, how has he done with this deck so far? He's definitely gotten one win. How many games did he lose in the first series?
I believe he's lost, I think it's like 1-4 or something. 1-3.
1-3? No, he definitely lost 3 matches against Life Coach with this deck, right?
Oh yeah, let me see how matches. So 3 against Life Coach. I think he won 1 against our friend Board Control, and now he's lost at least 2. Is it? We'll make him 1-5. Yeah.
Ooh, not a good position to be in with your Gaara. I mean, the thing is, like, Gaara, he's seen that this deck has done so well at DreamHack Summer, but he's made about like 5 or 6 card changes, and now this deck has done horribly for him. So he might just be regretting those changes at the moment.
For sure here. I did play that tournament, and I faced Impact, who had Marilok. I faced Jackie, who had Marilok. I faced Hawkeye as well, who had Marilok. So definitely the deck of the tournament there. Did do quite well, but thankfully I had a Rogue, and Rogue seems to be the answer, as well as Sue tends to be the answer. Nice player from Amaz, I like this. Not the worst. I think Gaara's hand is excellent. He has everything you could want. Both Twilight Drakes, the Belcher, Emperor Thor's, and most importantly, and the Shadow Flame, which is a key card.
Yeah, we were talking about how this deck often struggles to curve out. It doesn't have too many 3-drops. In fact, only 3 3-drops. It only has 2 4-drops. So it's actually quite lucky for Gaara to get this sort of hand with a 3-drop, then 2 4-drops, then a 5-drop to follow up, then even a 6-drop to curve into.
That's true. He may need to, yeah, I think it's an easy keeper here. But he wants to get a Ancient of Lore, I think, is the key card from Master Draw. Because he needs to get that out, preferably before the Emperor, but for that combo. I think though how this deck is built up, it's going to be more about board control for Amaz than actually drawing the combo. But draw is what's going to be needed here. It is almost plays like a control warrior, the way Gaara is playing it, you know, with a limited burst, you have the Alexstrasza, you have the mid-range stuff, instead of Deathspite there's going to be a Twilight Drake, you know, both playing Belchers, both with some AoE from Shadowflame and Brawl, so that Wild Growth is not what Amaz wants to be seeing.
Yeah. Now, you argue that it's somewhat like Control Warrior. I argued before that it was actually a lot like Freeze Mage, because you have the heals, you have like the board clears, like, and with this deck it's almost like the board clears are the minions instead of spells. And you also have the finishing off combos with like Soulfire, Dark Bomb, Malygos, and of course you have the Alexstrasza in both decks to preempt the final damage.
It's both quite similar. The thing is, it's mixing in minions and control, kind of the way as Warrior does, but of course, you know, Freeze Mage does that as well. Now, I mean, it seems to be a scenario that a lot of decks are going for. Burst, Emperor, board control, and a lot of draw. And it's been working great. So many decks going for that at the moment. Now, this is actually not a bad turn for Emperor Thorson. I mean, it's fine to get the Malygos, you know, discounted, but with this case, on turn 10, you can burst him down with both Soulfire and the Dark Bomb. So Dark Bomb, Malygos, and Soulfire are the key cards to get discounted.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen a lot of Malygos Warlocks. This is kind of counterintuitive, but when they don't have Dark Bomb, Soulfires, or Mal'Ganis in their hand, and it's turn 6 on like even an empty board, sometimes they just don't play the Emperor Thorson because it's so much more important to get those specific cards discounted.
It's kind of like not playing Ancient of Lore, you know. If you don't need to, it's often better to go for a 6-drop or Dr. Boom, because the board presence of a 5/5 isn't comparable to Dr. Boom or something along those lines. So definitely, if you have the option for let's say a Black and Corruptor, for example, or tap and Twilight Drake, you often rather go for that than a Emperor. Like turn 7 tap 5-drop, turn 6 tap 4-drop. You know, that's definitely what you want to be looking at in this deck.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, is it possible that we might see a Shadow Flame here? And it was definitely like Gaara was definitely hovering over that, but instead he goes for somewhat of a more like a defensive play, I guess, in some ways. But now there's a really easy trade from Amaz, so I think what Gaara's trying to do, he's trying to set up a good Shadow Flame for the next turn.
It seems to be maybe around 10 or 11. It gets to the awkward point where the Druid has, let's say, 3 minions and is threatening lethal with the combo, and then we saw with the life cuts and I believe it was Gaara as well, that life cuts and Amaz, I mean, in that close scenario, we just need the Shadow Flame to win, and Druid has to play around Shadow Flame. So I think keeping the Shadow Flame as long as possible is the way to go, but might be decent now even.
I mean, that's a pretty good draw. Defender of Argus lets him get a good trade into the Ancient of Lore, and now he doesn't have to use the Shadow Flame. He can keep on developing his board, force his opponent to take care of his board for you, and just draw deeper down into your deck into Malygos.
I think no matter what you do, you can be tapping. That's at least my point of view on this. Because if you don't tap, you're going to be running out of cards, and if you... basically next turn, I mean...
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. I like to see the tap as well.
The thing though is, Gaara tends to draw Alexstrasza early, and it kind of hasn't been working out for him like that. I mean, there's always been 2 or 3 dead cards in his hand, and at this point he's drawing an excellent hand, thankfully.
But you know what? Like, Gaara has drawn an excellent hand in the beginning of the game, but it's still not working out too well for him. How crazy is that? Like, he's still not in a dominating position.
I think to note though is that, you know, it hasn't been bad for Amaz so far, even though his hand right now is weak. Up to this point it's been decent. Now, guess he wish he could go for that wild growth for the draw. I mean, swipe is not bad though.
It's not bad, but it's not good either, just based on like what you have in your hand. The question is now, does Amaz actually go for like the tempo BGH? Because you know, you're like, if Amaz has been watching the past broadcast, he knows Gaara has 2 Molten Giants and an Alexstrasza in his deck. But is it ever going to come to the point where Gaara is able to use those cards?
I would definitely go for the BGH if I didn't know that there was going to be a Molten coming up. But if he was going to go for the BGH, he would have to trade into the 2-2.
But I think with this play, it definitely shows that Amaz has been watching the broadcast. But okay, no, he plays the BGH anyway.
Hellfire about perfect here. I think he tap again though. Molten Giant. An average card. It basically takes the question out of if you can Hellfire or not, but I don't think you can add anything more onto that. Now, realistically, for Gaara, he will be in an okay position to play the Molten Giant next to him with a tap. Put him down to, what is it, 16 health, tap, Molten Giant Taunt, possibly tap Molten Giant Shadow Flame even. But that will obviously leave him vulnerable to combo. So he's at 16 health now. Going for the definitely for the Ancient of Lore plus the Wild Growth. I think the scenario is if he gets anything like a keeper, it still wouldn't be as good. I mean, generally the scenario is that there's gonna be 2 heal bots in Gaara's hand. We also know about the Alexstrasza, so that's another thing to add on. But now we have the option of Molten Giant. I kinda like Molten Giant, Soulfire, Mortal Coil here. I think Soulfire is gonna have to come down at some point, but if he had the Malygos, this would be the textbook example of a Malygos Mortal Coil turn for insane value. But I mean, like, if he loses the Owl, it's not a big deal. If he loses the Sunfury, it's gonna be a big deal. So maybe just throw out the Molten, the Sunfury, and then go for the Soulfire. Maybe have to get greedy and not Mortal Coil first. I think he's behind, so it's gonna be something he'll have to do. Does go for the safe route here. Drops out the abusive, not much value gonna get from that later on. I'm surprised why you would rather keep the abusive in hand than the Shadow Flame. It's interesting. But from Amaz's point of view, there's, you know, a second BGH. It's close to lethal. I think Dr. Boom even might just be too much for Gaara to handle. So Amaz is looking to take this series here out. Seems like we have lost Monk. In this call here, let's see. So Gaara does tap. He gets the. He does end up getting the Molten, the second Molten, and the heal bot. But we see Amaz finishing this off. 3-2 to Amaz. Well played. Amaz joins life coach in the round of 8.
Yeah, well played from Amaz indeed. he had like I think like throughout the whole day, I think Amaz actually played pretty well overall, especially against board control, where he was at a disadvantage in the Zoo mirror, but he actually eked it out because of his better play with Zoo. And I kind of feel like in this series overall, I feel like Amaz kind of outplayed Gaara in a way that perhaps even in the deck building stage, maybe Gaara's decision to bring those Molten Giants instead of the more mid-rangey creatures like the Azure Drake and the Blackwing Corruptor kind of hurt him in the end.
I feel overall, with Amaz, it's been a little bit back and forth. I think that he was a bit shaky against Life Coach, and then did kind of get outplayed there. He demolished board control and did outplay him, and then, in my opinion, it was a very even match. It was always going to come down to the matchups. I gave a slight edge to Amaz with the decks just off the bat, but he does end up taking it 3-2. So, interesting to see how this goes. I guess not an upset. Archon winning, Life Coach. I guess everyone was expecting him to take the first. So Life Coach does take first in this series. Amaz in second, Gaara in third, and board control, the qualified player, coming in fourth.
Yeah, not an upset. Are you saying Archon is better than Tempo Storm? Your words, Caldy. Your words, Caldy. Your words.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think that's about wraps it up for today. We're going to have a great series of matches tomorrow. In fact, we're going to have Group D of the StarLadder kickoff season, and it'll include some pretty good names like Force and like Firebat. I think we're saying it right now.
Yeah, Ranman, yeah, and Tyson. I think I'm really looking forward to see Forsen against Ranman. I've been casting him before against the qualified players, and the games tend to be so much fun, seeing that, as he has to play quite aggressively, and the open qualified players tend to play aggressively as well, so it gets often very interesting. But overall, Amaz and Life Coach making it through to the round of 8, joining Colento, Strive Crow, Lostov in that round of 8, stacked tournament here in the StarLadder. So I guess thank you guys for tonight. Been a pleasure casting here, and looking forward to see you tomorrow for the Group D.
Yep. Well, I think that's it for today. I just have to repeat, I've had a great time casting today with you, Caldy, and definitely check out both today's VODs and tomorrow's games. We'll see you tomorrow.
You got spare game codes or any digital goods? There is a place you can sell them in less than 1 minute. Watch. Go to g2a.com.